Should we start or are we still waiting for Dr. Najati?
Waiting for Dr. Najat
Okay.
and sending a message.
Okay, inshallah.
He said he was traveling. Maybe he is not available. I have no idea. There is no message either. Let me see if there is any message. Mhm. We just said just 5 minutes passed and there is no message. Shall we start?
Okay, inshallah. Let's do that.
Okay, inshallah. Let me. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي هارون أخي اشدد به أزري واشركه في أمري كي نسبحك كثيرا ونذكرك كثيرا إنك كنت بنا بصيرا. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه آمين. وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. وصل اللهم على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم. ربنا اغفر لنا وارحمنا وأنت خير الراحمين. آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين. Inshallah, we will continue our subject, and today Nurbanu has prepared some slides where mostly the examples and practical examples are going to be presented, and I hope Nurbanu is ready here and would like to hear. I'm looking forward to her explanations. Please, Nurbanu, without wasting time, start. You
Okay,
can
inshallah.
introduce your subject as well.
Love it.
Why did you take all these examples?
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Jazakallah khair, Dr. Ali. So for the past month almost, we've been talking about the kind of move that's very cunning or tricky that materialist scientists or materialists make in response to the kind of questions we might ask that are very human questions. So we talked about, kind of the language that they use with Wittgenstein and how any question that we ask about, why is there something rather than nothing is said to kind of go outside of the physical universe, and thus it's this kind of like mystical question, and we can't really answer it. We shouldn't really even ask it because it doesn't make sense because we can't answer it. So I wanted to give you guys an example of what that might look like in conversation. And so in this example, we'll look at the process of how water forms. And I just took these screenshots from a very brief conversation with like LLM. So this is Claude. And it's this AI large language model that you can ask a question and it'll answer. And the way that these models are trained, they obviously have some instructions when they're first modeled, and they're trained on kind of like a wide range of discourse. but you'll see how it speaks. And I'm going to kind of try to map it to what we have been talking about in the last few weeks, inshallah. So I asked Claude, how does H2O, water, come into being? And I want us to, like, as we look at this explanation, just kind of pay attention to the language that it's using. So it says water forms when two hydrogen atoms bond with one oxygen atom. Here's how it happens. The chemical bond. Oxygen has six electrons in its outer shell and needs two more to be stable. So when we're reading this kind of explanation, um, you might say, okay, linguistically, the words make sense, but oh, should I share? Because I'm still on the first page.
Another,
No, no, the 176.
this one?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, did I change it? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think it was an accident.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so um, I'm reading it and I say, okay, oxygen has six electrons and it needs two more to be scientific language works. It almost makes them sound kind of like things that have needs and wants and thoughts and intentions in a way that they almost know what needs to happen. So hydrogen has one electron and needs one more. So one oxygen atom shares electrons with two hydrogen atoms, forming two covalent bonds, and this creates a single water molecule. Okay, so initially, we kind of just take it for granted that oxygen has six electrons, hydrogen has one electron, and there's this idea of stability. And to be stable, one of them needs two, one of them needs one. That's why when they come together, they form a molecule. So on the side here, I wrote these questions, right? Like, does oxygen know that it has six electrons? Or does oxygen know that it needs two more electrons so that it can be stable? Why should it want stability? It's written almost as if, oh, that's just the way things are. If you are an oxygen atom, you need two more electrons to be stable because that's how it should be. Stability, in this sense, is just something that it requires that it's pulled to, right? And then it says in nature, water forms in several ways, and it lists these different things. And then at the very bottom, it says the shape of the molecule is also worth noting. The two hydrogen atoms attach at an angle, giving water a bent shape. This makes it a polar molecule, which is why it has so many unique properties like surface tension, high boiling point, and its ability to dissolve so many substances. So if you've ever seen it, the oxygen atom is like up top, and then the hydrogen atoms are at an angle, and they have the number for this angle. So I also wrote, how come when they attach at this 104.5-degree angle each time? How did they come up with this shape? And why is it that polar molecules lead to these unique properties, right? So if we go to the next slide, Dr. Ali,
No,
thank you. I just asked that, and you can see my question here. How do they know they need to attach at that angle? So how it responds is the atoms don't know. The angle is just the result of physics, finding the lowest energy arrangement. So again, we should notice the language that is being used here, right? They gave this attachment angle and the way that this happens a name. It's a VSEPR theory. So electrons arrange themselves to stay as far from each other as possible. So this move that they observe something, and we can, if you guys are molecular scientists, maybe you observe this yourselves. right? You observe this thing that is very consistent. Every time you see a water molecule, this is how it's happening. Now, you can give it a name to make it easier to talk about, but we need to be careful that whatever name we're giving it to, or however we're describing it, doesn't make it so that it sounds like or it attributes that power, that deliberation, that intention to those electrons, those protons themselves, right? So here it says the electrons arrange themselves to stay as far from each other as possible. So if you guys remember, we've been talking about the materialist view and the what a believer sees and how they speak about these things. So here it's like Claude is representing this materialist mainstream view where there is this orderly formation of water molecules. The reason we can even study it is because there's this consistent order and it keeps happening in a way that is very reliable, that we study it, we give these things names, we have theories based on, we can calculate it, right? We don't say 90% of the time they attach at this angle. Every single time, this is how they attach. Every single time, it's one oxygen atom, two hydrogen atoms. Every single time. So every time these come together, something new comes into being, right? A water molecule. And we see that it has a consistent shape, it has consistent qualities. How it boils is the same, how it freezes is the same. The angle of the electrons and the atoms are the same. So then you might ask, okay, like how come it's always the same? How come there's this consistency? How come? What's driving this continuation? Because you might observe it once and it might disappear, but it's not like that. So if we go to the next slide, yeah. Um, I wrote, the materialist conundrum. So up till now, we have talked about how the materialist position is to only accept the reality of physical things, right? So they accept that anything you can touch, see, measure, feel with your hands, those are things that are real. And that's why if you ask some of these questions that we are naturally asking, they say this is outside the bound of physics, this is outside the bound of material universe. That's why it's mystical, that's why it's not logical, it doesn't make sense. Like, don't ask us about that stuff. So for them, right, for this idea, anything that's physical, that's the only thing that's real. Even things that we can think of like thinking, caring, loving, right? They're usually explained in terms of brain activity or hormones, which then they say these are things we can measure, they're physical because I can put you under an MRI machine and look at what's happening in your brain. That's actually what you're calling love. That's actually what you're calling anger, even though, yes, you can't see them, we actually have this material reduction of those things. So everything else then falls into this realm of the mystical. So we might ask, based on the previous conversation we had, how come these, masses of objects exert gravitational pull? How come water has surface tension? They might say, right, if you ask a scientist who believes in this way, they will refer to or they will answer you with some theories and laws, such as the law of thermodynamics or the law of gravity or the one that we read in the previous one, VSEPR, right? So you say, okay, how come the electrons arrange at this angle? They say, oh, it's because of the VSEPR. They choose the angle that's most optimal for each electron to be apart from each other. How come? So, materially speaking, right? Let's say we're actually talking to someone and we said, oh, well, not everything in life is something we can see. What about, when I love my mother? Or what about when I'm having a dream? What are those things? And they say, oh, those are also physical things because is, actually like when you're happy, that's some hormone in your body. When you feel anger or thinking, that's just brain activity. Those are all things that we can measure. And so anything that's real must be physical. So the reality then of these laws, right? Gravity, thermodynamics, all these other things that we might hear from them, where is the reality of those things, right? Where are they? Where can we find them or measure them, right? If the materialist claim is true, which is that only real things in life are things we can see, observe, measure, touch, shouldn't we find somewhere in the universe that there is something that's the law of thermodynamics, right? So I got this picture that's like this funky object you can see, right? Let's say it's out in space somewhere, and that thing that's floating out in space is the law of thermodynamics. Or you have something else that's maybe even on Earth, right? Maybe it's like hidden 500 kilometers in the Earth's crust or something. And that's the law of gravity. Not there is gravity here. We're talking about the actual law. Where is that? Right? So something physical, something we can take a sample from and pop under a microscope, something we can study. And so the part of the dialogue that ends with this happens because of this law, because of this rule, because of this thing that we named, ends in a conundrum or ends in this kind of uh, irony because the materialists, even though they're totally against all these non-physical things, they call it mystical, they call it logical, they operate under the metaphysical assumption, right? That these laws exist and um, they are dictating how our reality or how we experience the universe um, happens. Um, so I'll show you guys an actual example from a scientist in the next slide. And also is to note that we've been talking about this materialist point of view for over a month. So you might maybe say like, why are we focusing on this that much? It's not that, it's just scientists that talk among themselves or something. But I'm going to reference this book because I just want us to understand that this is actually very mainstream and it's how we speak, it's how our culture is inundated, right? It's just like this is the cultural kind of majority for how people think about how things happen in the universe and how they look at it, how they question it, or are not allowed to question it. So this is, you might know about it, Neil deGrasse Tyson. He is a very, very famous kind of popular scientist. He's an astrophysicist, and he wrote this book in 2017, and it was #1 on the New York Times nonfiction bestseller list. More than 48,000 copies sold in the first week. And to in total, they have sold more than 1 million copies. Okay. So if we go to the next slide, um, right. So I added this, I own this book. So in the preface, he says, right, astrophysics persistently garners interest from people. Like people really like learning about astrophysics. He wrote this book. It's supposed to be for everybody. It's not like a textbook. And he says this is because people, like humans, tend to look up at the sky and wonder, what does it all mean? How does it all work? What is my place in the universe? So the places that I highlighted, you can see. So in the very beginning of the book, this is what he's admitting. Hey, people really like astrophysics or studying these kinds of things, reading about these things because they're wondering. They're looking at the sky, they're thinking, what am I doing here as a person? Like, what is my place in the universe? How does it all work? What does it all mean? And this is on the left page. And then on the right page, he quotes himself and he says, the universe is under no obligation to make sense to you. So when I first read this, I felt I felt so surprised because I said, what? It's just there's one paragraph between that and what he just said. He said human beings wonder these things. We all ask these questions. And then in the next page, he says the universe is under no obligation to make sense to you. It doesn't have to make sense to you. There's no obligation like that. Which it's also ironic because then he spends the whole book talking about how the universe makes sense. So the reason, again, we talked about this, that astrophysics as a field can even exist is because there are things in the universe that make sense consistently that you can go and get a PhD in astrophysics, and in the beginning of your PhD and at the end of your PhD, the laws of physics will not change, right? So those 5, 6, 7 years, you know that, oh, the law of thermodynamics, called that, is gonna stay the same. So how or why? Like this is the question that we're asking, right? And he accepts and admits that these are questions people ask, and then immediately shuts us down. But there's no obligation for it to make sense to you. Okay? It is all happening on its own. If it doesn't make sense, it didn't have an obligation. It just so happens to make sense sometimes that we study it and give it all these names. But um, just from the very beginning, know that there's no obligation. So in the next page, um,
No, before going there, can I interrupt you and
guys.
give you time to rest? You must be tired. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a substantial argument and criticism of this nonsense materialist approach. Can I ask you a question? That what I have been thinking throughout, maybe I don't know, more than 50 years in my life, when I see any materialistic or anybody's interpretation of the existence of the universe, I notice that they take human beings out of the universe, put the universe out there, and an alien thing, human being, is questioning the universe. Now, for example, as you quoted this, the universe doesn't have to answer your question. But excuse me, seems to be a bright, smart philosopher, speaks in this way everywhere, actually. It is, to me, always makes a self-contradictory statement. But it uses a tricky language. We should be careful. Universe doesn't have to answer my question. Excuse me, sir. Universe, I am in the universe. I am asking the question, a part of the universe. Crazy man, what are you talking about? You look at these presumptions. I am a part of the universe and asking the question about my own existence, where I live, where I exist within the universe. Doesn't make any sense. So I am asking the question, and when I am saying, why do I exist? It means I am existing within the connection of the whole universe, and this is why I make sense of my own life. And it means, why do I exist? This is my question. This is the question of the universe itself. So it must make an answer, give an answer. An answer is there. You and I, the universe, and all together, we understand that we need an answer, and the universe gives a sign to me, points to me. Yeah, that look, we have some source. We cannot exist by itself because My asking the question, why do I exist, is the result of my own existence. The one who gave me existence, whatever the way you explain my existence, gave me this ability to ask this question, and you are in need of an answer to your question. Search for it. And the universe says, yes, there is an answer who made you with this ability to ask the question. He will give you the answer.
Mhm.
No logic, no logical consistency, just the tricky language. Now, we can continue, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. Um, yeah, that's always good to note that in if you read anything like this, that's a really good highlight, Dr. Ali, that human beings, especially when they talk about, the evolutionary clock, oh, the universe has existed for millions and millions of years. Human beings appear at the very, very end. They've only been around for some time. They're very tiny, and then they're just out of the question or they're out of the picture. And it's just we're looking at this universe as something separated or disjointed from us. So there's this part in the book where he talks about these questions that people ask. And then the move he makes, you can see, is precisely what we've been talking about. So at the top, he says, what happened before all this? What happened before the beginning? So in this section, he talked about the Big Bang. And then he says, this is what people ask, like, what happened before then? Or where did it come from? And then he says astrophysicists have no idea. Or rather, our most creative ideas have little or no grounding in experimental science. In response, some religious people assert, with a tinge of righteousness, that something must have started it all, a force greater than all others, a source from which everything issues, a prime mover. In the mind of such a person, that something is, of course, God. But what if the universe was always there, in a state of condition we have yet to identify? A multiverse, for instance, that continually births universes. Or what if the universe just popped into existence from nothing? This is his own language, if you're following. Or what if everything we know and love were just a computer simulation rendered for entertainment by a super intelligent alien species? These philosophically fun ideas usually satisfy nobody. So, this is it's just like when you're reading this with the knowledge, or with your own, human faculties still intact, it reads almost as something that like you should pity because the questions he's asking is everybody's question. What happened before all this? How did it, right? Like what Dr. Ali is saying, why do we exist? This is he's asking this too. Then he says that we have no idea, or um, our ideas have no grounding in experimental science. Experimental science here is we can put it in a lab, study it. It's purely physical. So they're saying we don't know. We don't know what happened before all this. So then he says, right, this is a completely unnecessary claim he has to make in his book. He doesn't need to do this. But like we're talking about this, the mainstream cultural kind of narrative, he says in response to us, the astrophysicists, the scientists, the learned people, religious people come and they say, oh, something must have started it. And we can call that thing God. Okay, so one, he has this really one-dimensional idea of what God is. And then the way he's framing it is us versus them. Us, scientists, astrophysicists, experimental science people who are only making claims based on things we can see and touch and measure. And then those people, religious people, who are righteous about this, they say something must have started it all, and then they just call it God. But we're saying we are more intellectually, this is what he's saying, We are more intellectually open. We're more like honest. We're saying we can't know because the science is just not there yet, maybe. Right? So then he says, "Oh, what if all these other things happened? What if it just came out of nothingness? What if it, just one day, universe pops into existence out of nothing?" Could be an answer. And then he admits this is not very satisfying. So in one page, he goes through this like up and down emotionally, you can see, right? And logically, that things aren't really matching. There's this question, and this question is something people ask, and it's a very real question. And like any scientist would say, science, right? Like curiosity is what the mother of science, what's the word? It's like without curiosity, we don't have science. So we have to ask these things. Okay. Oh, and then yeah, we're asking this, but maybe it just happened by itself. Who knows? Well, it's not really satisfying. Maybe we'll figure it out, maybe we won't. But at least we're not like religious people. At least we're not saying it's God. Okay. So when we're in dialogue or when we are reading, when we're listening to something that has this language, it's important that like we're paying attention to this underlying, subtext. What are they saying? What are they claiming? And some of you might remember, this was many, many weeks ago now, that Dr. Ali said something that I really liked. He said that the unclaimed universe, if he remembers it maybe, that uh, the universe is, or yeah, the universe is kind of orphaned in this way because we're not staking our claim on it from our point of view. So it seems that this materialist and illogical point of view is the dominant view, and they have their stake, or they have staked their claim on the universe. And what they're saying is, it's under no obligation to make sense to you. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to give you an explanation. It doesn't need to give you an answer. You might ask, why do I exist? Why does anything exist? But we're going to tell you, you're not going to get an answer. And all those questions you're asking, it's outside the bounds of what we can do. And that's why we're not even going to entertain. So for us, right, like we need to look at how can we kind of stake our claim, because what we've been talking about all this time is that the universe is saying something to us. It is giving us a message, and we have our own, we are interpreting that message in a special way. So in the next slide, I made this comic with Gemini, and it's kind of like a humorous way, I guess, to kind of talk about the subject. So imagine, so this is kind of like a comic panel. This is, this man is the main character, and every two panels is a new day. So every day, this man gets a box, a parcel that has a gift in it for him. Okay, so the first day, and there's, he gets this, but it's not something that he ordered himself, and it's kind of just came out of nowhere. So he says, "Oh, like I wonder what's inside." And it's this beautiful scarf. And then he just throws it away and he says, "Oh, who cares who sent it? As long as it keeps me warm, that's what I care about." So immediately, right, we're thinking that's so uncharacteristic. If you got a package in the mail and it had something in it that was perfectly tailored for you, that's exactly what you needed, you would ask, who sent it to me? Let me see if there's an address. Let me see if there's any clues. Let me see if there's a message inside, right? Like he just throws out the box and he says, I don't really care who sent it. I'm just going to use it. Next day, he gets the sandwich. Ooh, like another one. Exactly what I wanted for lunch. That's what he was craving. That's what he got. And then he starts eating it. He's like, "This is delicious. It's the best tuna sandwich I've had." And then again, he throws away the package. He says, I've stopped asking questions. It's just good fortune." Then the next day, he gets this nice pair of shoes. And he says, wow, they've truly hit the mark this time. Perfect timing. I needed new shoes and it fits him exactly. They know my size. And he says, I'm just going with it. 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. So like, he got four things and each time is perfect for him. And again, he throws away the box. And then in the last panel, he gets this watch and he says, wow, this is extraordinary. This is a serious piece. But there's still no card or like he is looking at it. He doesn't even really look at it. He's just like, okay, I got it in this box. Okay, I've always wanted one. I won't overthink it. Just enjoy it. Okay. And this is kind of the materialist view of understanding and interpreting and reading the universe. All those things we talked about, oh, water forms this way. Yeah, it just so happens to be that way. Gravity exerts pull this way. Yeah, we gave it a name. What else do we want to do? Oh, hey, you and I need these kinds of foods and nutritions, and they happen to be just in the things that grow, that we can reach, that we can digest, that we can enjoy. And it's not just, oh, some one thing, but every season we have different kinds of things. Every stage of life, we get different kinds of things. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No need to question it. It just so happens that way. So imagine if this man, right, it kept happening to him every day, and he was still, at some point, he just got used to it, and he says, okay, let me see what I get in the box today. And he's still not saying, who is sending this to me? Where is it? Like, why? Why are they sending this to me? Right? This is the question we ask. How come? Like, why? Out of nowhere, I got this gift. So you would ask, why? Did I win something? Is it my friend? Is it a special day? Why? Why? Like, why? So this is, we've talked about how it's a very human question, and it's a question we don't want to suppress. But currently, the dominant discourse is structured in such a way that if you ask this, it's it's illogical in the sense that, yeah, because we can't really explain it in terms of what we can measure in a lab. Don't ask it. So it's mystical, it's otherworldly, it's outside the bounds of what we call logical, what we can measure, what we can touch, what we can see. So um, don't express your human need, okay? And just suppress, just enjoy. Like, okay, the world works in this way, just enjoy it. And it's it's very tempting, I guess. But deep down, we all still have that question. So this is kind of where I will stop. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, you can write on the chat, I guess. But that's all I had.
Oh, thank you very much, mashallah. I'm very pleased that you prepared all the slides and shared with us. These examples reminded me the difference between human being and an animal. Uh, you can make the same thing also. For example, get a bunch of flower, present to somebody, and and see what he does, he or she does. He doesn't start eating, does it? But the same flower presented to an animal, what does he do? Like this slide showing, eats it. They reduce human beings to animal level, even not animal level, not animal level, worse than animal, as the Quran states. How the animal, yes, when you present a flower to an animal, the animal eats it. That's correct. But at the same time, animal doesn't only do that. Animal has also uh, a kind of non-material aspect of it. For example, protects his child, his young, educates it, prepares the child for life. And when the child is ready to continue its life, leaves it. And freely child, the baby, the young goes on its life. Now ask the materialist, why does an animal should do that? Because it wants, look at this, look, it has a sense, for example, bird has a sense to continue its generation. But what, but this bird example has sense empirically. Can you show me the sense? Because the main problem of materialist understanding is reducing knowledge to empiricism, empirically provable. The main problem that is raised to human mind is David Hume. David Hume has one aspect which is good, the other aspect is extremely dangerous, very harmful thinker. We have to watch out. Empirically, if anything is not proven empirically, as your pictures are showing here, who sent the gift? Empirically, this man cannot prove it. Then deny the sender of the gift, preparer of the gift. This is the most tricky language they use. Now, empiricism is the source of reality. We have to empirically example. Okay, show me the human senses empirically. Show me the sense of the bird empirically. Wants to protect its young, prepare its young for life, and want its generation to continue. These are all non-empirical realities. No, these materialists confuse always the level of existence and reduces everything to matter. But when they answer the question that human beings ask, they say, we cannot empirically prove it. But when they justify their materialist interpretation by using some terms which represent non-empirical, materially non-empirical. Human senses, non-empirical. When somebody presents you, comes up to your house and visits you with a bunch of flower, you don't start eating. You go and put it in a vase and put it on the table and enjoy the beauty of the flower. That is your human reality. Where did you get this sense of appreciating the beauty and making the difference between human senses, animal senses, which are not empirically proven? Impossible. So we have to watch out what the trick they use as you presented. It inclines to this direction. Why? Physically show me. But it is doing this. For example, the bird is protecting. It is young and educating it how to fly, how to really get its own food, educating it. Why should we do it? Why should it do it? They say because lots of non-physical element, language got involves into it. We have to be very careful. Now, very careful. It developed by itself. These are just scenarios, mythology. I always give it this example. You know the famous Greek mythologies, legends. In fact, Greek mythologies are symbolic teaching of aspects of the existence of the universe, different aspects of the existence of the universe. There are this aspect, and they symbolize it with the language of goddesses. If you really read it as a literary piece, and this is the uh, way of explaining different kinds of aspects of the existence of the universe are seem to be contradicting each other, but they have a controller. These are the symbolic teaching. To an extent, you may make sense of it. Yeah, this is a representation of different aspects of the universe that we human beings are experiencing. Whereas this materialist science interpretation, I am fully convinced, is doesn't make sense at all. There is no aspect of the universe is explained at all. This is just mythology. They use a language contradicting each other, contradicting human beings. Put human beings outside of the universe, ignore human beings' own question that why am I here? Ignore it completely and say that that is what everything is out there, universe. Maybe as you pointed out in the book, Neil's book, there's a point that maybe it is eternally existing, but any empirical evidence that the universe can exist eternally? No evidence at all. On the contrary, it is going to come to an end, not eternal. The science itself it says it is going to come to an end. Now, maybe, but look, but Greek mythology, I'm not saying the Quran, the Bible, or the Hebrew Bible. I'm not saying God revealed. No, Greek mythology may make sense, but materialistic interpretation doesn't make sense. That is what we have to understand. That while we are reading it, all their claims are based on excuse, based on speculative language. Maybe, why not? Could have been. And then said, at the same time, they say, we cannot believe anything which is empirically proven, which is not empirically proven. Do you see the content? Just explain to me what you understood. Explain summarize it if any of you, Nurbanu or Dr. Najati. Now,
Yes, I'm sorry, I was late and I was listening. Thank you very much, Nirvana. I think it was really, really great, mashallah. I'm in different time zone. I just had someone ask question. I was a little late. Now, I think the key point here is about what Nurbanu mentioned, and then I'll come to you, Dr. Ali. I think what in Nurbanu's presentation, one of the key points we need to really highlight is that still they're talking about um, the prime mover as if the universe is just created once upon a time. We try to see who started. And I think we need to look at from the Quranic perspective, we're talking about very dynamic universe being created from moment to moment, which is much more proper to the modern understanding of the universe as well. That's one key thing, because I see is like this is, you know, the kind of old discussion is really in modern time. I feel we need to move from that discussion and look at to say, I need explanation for what is happening right now. I'm not talking about what happened before the Big Bang. That is the key part. In terms of, I think, Dr. Ali, what you mentioned, the empiricism that you're saying is all it's complete mythology, or what sometimes we call it, it is superstition. Essentially, this is what they blame. They use phrase for religion, but the essence of their belief is indeed baseless. That's what you are really highlighting. And that baseless arguments, unfortunately, because of the success in developing technology, and they say, look, you know, we do scientific work, and look, you enjoy our airplane, you enjoy, you know, our technology, and that's come from us as a scientist. And if that works, then our idea as well must be true. So that is, I think they are using a kind of the success in technological development as a way of justifying their own, let's say, superstition. That's what I feel like they feel they have reason to be true because of that. But in terms of methodology, what you mentioned, empiricism and materialism, relying on empiricism, I find out that even many Muslims thinking that evidence is only if it is based on empiricism is evidence, and they think that faith or religion is really ultimately is a leap of accepting something without evidence, and science has to be based on evidence. What you're saying and what actually Quran is saying, the Quran is saying that their argument is baseless, no evidence. They are tricking, they are playing it a game, they are lying. So our job here is to really make it this very clear first, what is the flow in their argument. And I think that's what you know, as you are presenting and reflecting, and we have been doing this, and I think that is very, very helpful. Like example of water and hydrogen and oxygen, thinking on that and finding out a baseless claim. That's really essential. Now, the other thing is, it has been around, I think it's almost 100 years. There's a methodology called phenomenology. Now, phenomenology start with like Edmund Husserl and others. They actually try to come up with an alternative scientific approach of testing idea. And the famous example I remember from those work, I really like it. It says this, it says, if I say I have headache, now I experience the headache and I go to hospital, they do all kind of tests and they find absolutely nothing wrong with me. Now in this case, the empirical result shows I'm perfectly fine, but meanwhile, I feel I have headache. The question Husserl will ask, who will you believe? Will you believe in those test results from hospital shows you're perfectly fine? Or will you believe in your direct experience as being conscious of the pain that you right now have? So in this case, he says, obviously you're going to believe in yours because this is direct experience. So I feel like what the Quran is really encouraging us is to use our experiential knowledge through the consciousness and experience to say, look, I give the evidence to you directly. don't you know when you cook a meal, it take knowledge to make it? Then why can't you see there must be a chef who make this delicious fruit for you from a dust and dirt and animal waste? Don't you know from your experience? Do you have to go and test this in a lab? So I think we need to really shift from the empirical approach to say, no, there are other approaches as well, and even more convincing than empirical one to tell us what is the evidence and what is right, what is wrong. And I feel like the Quran in this regard is really encouraging us to look at our experience and from there to find the evidence and build a certainty. So that's the part I don't know, like, I don't know what you think on that, but I think that's the part I really like it, how the science is in a way that some scientists try to come up with alternative approach, but I think the modern science largely stuck in this empirical approach and thinking if something is not testable in a lab, then does not have any evidence and is not our subject. And I think we discussed before that is very, very limiting way of looking at the evidence.
No, thank you. So we can extend this to empiricism because we know that materialists reduces human beings to just mass of cells and matter only, ultimately. Accidentally happened to be developed in this way, accidentally as a result of random happenings. So we should say, we have to be careful, we should say, empirically, I myself see that I have questions, I have feelings, I have need for an answer to my questions. And I ask, what does it mean? What does it mean? For example, even the materialist himself asks, what does the universe mean? Why does it happen in this way? Why do you think they go and work in the lab? What do? They want to benefit from it. Why do you want to benefit from it? Just leave yourself to random happenings because you are the results of random happenings. Full of contradiction. I don't know where to handle really which makes sense. But by reducing human beings to material elements only, and then saying that everything must be empirically proven. Of course, when we, as human beings, normal human beings with no closed minds at all, no biased idea at all, I ask myself, empirically, I am asking myself, why do I exist? Where this gift came to me? Where? From where? And why, who arranges all these happenings in the universe, as you pointed out at the beginning of your today speech. You said, we don't say who started the universe from the beginning. No, I never asked this question. I never asked this question. I asked the question, who changed my life from yesterday to today, right now? Who makes me able to speak? Who makes me able to see? It is not the eye which sees. I am the one using the eye as a tool to see. I am seeing it. So if I don't want to see, I close my eyelids. That is I am. I exist. Who closes my lids? My eyelids. I am closing my eyelids like this if I don't want to see it. So they deny human eye, me. I am not my body because I say my body. Who are you? Who are you who says, this is my arm, this is my head? Who are you? So the one, the one who said, I think, and then do I think? Do I exist? Then I think. Look, when you say I think, you already accepted that you exist. So that the one who is thinking exists. If you didn't exist, you wouldn't say I think. You wouldn't be able. But everywhere is full of contradiction, Dr. Najati. I'm going crazy. How people can buy into it? Oh, all right. Let's read this and
There is,
get
yeah,
ready for the
there
next.
is there is one question in the thing since we discussed that. Do you want to address that? It says this. It says my is from Rumi. It says my experience is that materialists say, what is the benefit of attributing any creation or natural phenomena to God? What is the point of believing in God? How does it benefit me? As long as science benefits them, they don't feel the need to believe in God. So his question is like, materialists don't really see the point whether you say God or not. So I'm going to go and study and develop something that benefit me. And I don't need God when I go and develop technology and go and study the creation. So why you are telling me that I should attribute my study to God? What is the benefit? That's what the question. What will you say?
Okay. You know the famous nihilists, existentialists, yeah, they deny nihilists deny that there's meaning in existence. And what happened at the end, they suffered from severe psychological illnesses, severe psychological illnesses. So not satisfied at all. And I read someone who says, death is not important. That one aspect of it, there are many, but death is not important. But to live knowing that I am going to die is unbearable. Do you see the difference, Dr. Najat? To live knowing that I am going to die while I am living is unbearable. Not only for death, any human being, if someone, I mean, for example, I live in New York, so the streets are very narrow, especially Manhattan, and the sidewalks are very narrow. Yeah? So when people are walking, they are very crowded. So if somebody stops and gives you a path, you are a human being. You are a human being. We say thank you. Everybody says, oh, thank you, thank you. Because he just favored you a little bit. So if someone is traveling in the subway, just somebody offers, I am an old man, so some people, there are still, thank God, there are still human beings really purely materialist. So they offer me the seat. If I don't, if I don't thank this person, I feel guilty within myself. It contradicts my human nature. So the main need of human being is not material. I need to go faster. Why should I need to go faster? What am I going to do if I go fast to somewhere rather than slow? What am I going to do? Run, run, run. What am I going to benefit from it? At the end, I'm going to die. Why should I suffer? Why should I bother about going to somewhere faster than rather than in a shorter time? Why? Because the human needs, yes, this is material need. It looks like beneficial, but there is a big question mark there. But what makes me human to satisfy my human feelings? and meaningless. For example, I can ask Rumi, of course, he's asking a question, not in the sense denying it, trying to make sense of it and gives an opportunity to discuss about it. I thank Rumi very much. And as an example, but you are the representative of Rumi, Dr. Nezati here. You represent the participants, right? You are the moderator. So I'm asking you, if someone asks you to do something with no meaning, how would you react? No, just I say, for example, I'm asking you, Dr. Najati, run 1 hour to this direction. What would you say first?
I'll say, why?
Why, why should I run?
Yeah.
Look for reason, for meaning in why what I am doing in this world. So the most important need of human being is meaningful life. Meaningful life. If you don't have a meaning in your life, your being a human being will reduce to nothing, purposeless. It is impossible. Even the most notorious materialist cannot do anything meaningless. Cannot do. So looks for meaning. If he deliberately denies it, then he either commits suicide or cannot get out of bed and go crazy. Now we know what happened to Nietzsche at the end of his life, what happened to Sartre at the end of his life. Most of the Schopenhauer, uh, look at their life. I'm saying all these materialist philosophers, go and read their life. Which kind of life they live. They deny love, but they experience love in their life. Now, and without meaning. So, human satisfaction is for meaning and the answer, why am I here? Who brought me here? What am I going to do? Who brought me here and taking me away? Why? And find out that what I need permanent satisfaction. Where did I get this feeling that I need permanent satisfaction? And who can provide the permanent satisfaction? My life is transient. Universe is transient. Even the universe is not transient. I don't mind. I'm going to die. Finish. So permanent satisfaction. If somebody, let me give you an example, Dr. Najati. I invited you, God forbid, bad example, but, and gave you nice food and nice bedroom and bathroom. Food is perfect, all right? And you know that 10 days later, you are going to, I am going to slaughter you. Yeah? You know that. What do you say when I offer you a nice food? Oh, welcome, Najati. You say that you are a farmer, hey, animal farmer, feeding the animal at the end, slaughter it, get the meat, right? You are feeding me to kill. Although you are not going to benefit from my meat either, meaninglessly kill me. This is the life no one can bear. It is a contradictory human side. So you may not have a car, but you may live a meaningful life and be satisfied with your life. But if you don't know the meaning, not in only a car, if you have even an airplane or even a rocket, so that you can go anywhere you want immediately, meaningless, reduces human being to nothing. Okay. So shall we just read this and finish? And next week we have to start what the answer to of the Qur'an or message of the creator of the universe to all these questions. We will start this, inshallah. So this one says, in order to escape from human questions, they changed the definition of science. We have to be very careful about this kind of tricks. If you cannot measure it, it is not science. You see? Now, measure it physically, for example. Now, if you cannot measure it, for example, love of the flower, meaning of the flower that you are presented, or in the meaning of everything that this slide shows, the food, the scarf, and the shoes, and the watch. Now, uh, and uh, you cannot measure it. It is not science. But forget about this. So his actual recorded statement, this one is real, his life was along the lines of, when you cannot measure it, when you cannot express it in numbers, your knowledge is of a meager and unsatisfactory kind. The people who do advertisements, they say, come to our bank, for example, a bank advertisement. We don't see you as a number. It means respect you as a human being. That is a treatment of the bank, saying that we appreciate you being a human being. But materialist science says you are a number. Now measure it or it doesn't count. Is called scientism. Scientism, measure it and it doesn't count. That is why, for example, how many stars are there? This many. That's it. I counted it. Why are there? No, I cannot measure why I there rather than not happening there. What happens there? Human beings are just numbers in their eyes. But numbers, material number only, their intellect, their consciousness, feelings, or cannot be measured. Therefore, science should deny them as they claim and practice it nowadays. That is why they deny. But at the same time, they claim that science will explain everything. Science will explain everything. Look at the language. Now, you cannot measure it. It is not science. Why am I here? And the answer is science will explain everything. We are not explaining any of my human questions at all. This is the last one. We referred to it previously. That is why they cannot have the meaning because of their definition, reducing human beings a mass of meat and bone. And they say only what is measured in the lab materially, and this is the science, and this science is going to answer everything. But all my questions are from the beginning denied. From the beginning denied. That is not caught in my net is not fish. It means what cannot answer any question that cannot answer, they deny their existence. All the human feelings, consciousness, uh, needing for an answer to their human questions, they cannot answer. They say, we are just matter. Accidentally happen to be here. All the other questions are not, doesn't exist. They are not fish, as if the fisherman represents the materialist philosopher. Okay. Now, inshallah, next week is what, uh, how the Quran responds. Inshallah. Direct quotations from the Quran and application of it.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair,
Okay,
Dr.
so
Ali.
yeah, I have a weak connection. Nurbanu, I think you could summarize, inshallah, and then we can end with dua.
Yes, inshallah. So thank you, everybody. So today we just kind of kept talking about the distinction between, and we keep coming back to this slide. So, just to kind of point out as our summary, right? There's all this fish in the sea, and this fisherman can only catch some with his net. So what he says is, whatever I can't catch is not fish, which is not true. It's just that he can't catch it. So with our questions of why do I exist? Where did we come from? Why does the universe exist? What's the point of it all? The claim that, right, all of those are questions, like in this, they're all the fish. And the materialist claim is if I can't catch it in my net, if I can't answer it in a lab, then it's not answerable, it's not logical, it's not worthy of an answer even because it's not fish. So in this case, it's not reasonable enough to even be asked so that it warrants an answer. So this is the kind of thinking we want to push back on, and also to remind ourselves that the language may be tricky, but when we get to the core of it, it's actually very nonsensical. It's contradictory. It doesn't really hold up. So I think as we continue studying, we'll get more confidence in how we can kind of counter it as well, inshallah. So I'll stop there and thank you for hanging out for a little longer than our usual. And we'll close with a dua from Dr. Ali, inshallah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين بحرمة سر سورة الفاتحة.